Welcome. I'm so excited you're here. My name is Charity Majors. I am your host for the Meant for More podcast. And I want to just give a quick, I guess I would say summary of a retreat that I just hosted and some of the breakthroughs that the women just heard or just had. And if you have been wanting breakthrough, whether it is in hearing God's voice or even in your identity, I want to bring those things to light because there's something really, really special. I'm just pulling up my computer here, which is why I'm like looking over here. There's something really, really special that happens when, first of all, when women get together and when we gather around the power, the presence, the face of God, when we have a desire to encounter Him, to learn more about who He is, whose we are. And like I said, there just is something really, really special about it. And we experience that. And so I want to give you just kind of some brief overviews of some of the different things that we were talking about and some of the breakthroughs that the women were experiencing. And also, if you are wanting to grow in your identity, in your prophetic giftings, and even just have a safe place to take risk, to give words, to grow, to be in a prophetic community, to be equipped, then I want to actually invite you into my Prophetic Collective. If you go to wearemeantformore.com/community, you can learn more about it. But this is basically the gist of it, the overview of just how to really confidently know and walk in your God-given identity. Now, I actually shared, maybe I'll just pull it up. You can just see right here. I shared this graphic about this journey of what it looks like to have a lesson move from your head to your heart. And this is what I like to call, we actually just talked about this in church too, but it was about this sanctification gap, about who you think that you know God is, who you read about Him in the Bible, and then, but there's somewhere along the way that it has to actually go from you knowing it in your head to knowing it in your heart, and for you to really, for it to be a part of your identity and who you are in Christ and who you know God to be. And so it's kind of this journey of like the longest 18-inch journey from knowing something in your head to knowing it in your heart, or this sanctification gap. And I'll give you an example. So for me, one of these was knowing God as the promise keeper, not just God, the God of the promise keeper, but also the promise fulfilled. And for me, this journey came in, okay, yeah, like we can sing about God being the way maker and the promise keeper and all this really great stuff. But somewhere along the way, when we're put under pressure, when we're put in a hard situation in life where we're like, ooh, God, are you really a promise keeper? I have been praying for this thing. I've been contending for this thing. I've gotten words for this thing, but nothing in my external circumstance says that this is true. Are you really who you say you are, or is my circumstances more true? And so for me, it was this journey of it was with children and expanding our family, and my first son was born, and I had an incredible pregnancy, incredible home birth, and we didn't, when we were getting into then having another baby, my husband and I, we didn't think there was gonna be any problems, and we actually experienced loss. I lost a baby heading into the second trimester. And I went through, we also then, right around that same time, also lost my grandma, my grandpa. It was like just a season, and it all happened within a couple months, and it was this really, really hard season of loss. And it was always a desire of mine to be a mom. It was always a desire of mine to, have a big family. And this circumstance didn't speak to, or it said like everything in my circumstance actually said that this desire was not going to be happening. And I just remember after going through that season of loss and God just so faithfully meeting me in the dark night of my soul. If you want to learn more about it and read more about it, it's in my book, Meant for More, Igniting Your Purpose in a World That Tries to Dim Your Light. But I just remember in the dark night of my soul, sitting on the cold tile bathroom floor, ugly crying, asking God the big questions, the why me, why us, why our family, why this baby, why this dream, like why am I even here? And God just so faithfully meeting me. And I just remember his wraparound presence coming and just feeling like a warm blanket. And instead of giving me a 7-step to get out of my shame and out of my brokenness and how I felt like my body was broken and I couldn't keep this baby safe and feeling so alone, he didn't give me like a 7-step to get out of any of that stuff. He gave me himself. And he gave me his presence, and he gave me, he didn't try and fix me. And so it was this beautiful moment that I had with God that marked me forever. And I just remember as I was coming out of that season of healing, out of that season of loss, out of that season of grief through, counseling and even just getting into support groups of other people and families who had lost a child as well. And even just beginning to get brave and sharing my story and sharing our story. And even just believing God again that, okay, actually this desire is there. And God, who are you in the midst of this? And just really, really being in a loss and in a wilderness season. I remember God began to reveal to me, and this is one of the greatest gifts that I received out of that season. But that every living part of my being knows that you are a divine miracle, that millions of pieces and parts have to come together for life to be sustained. And so it's not a mistake that you're here. It's not a mistake that I'm here. We are literally living, breathing, walking God dreams that God was like, okay, I know exactly what the world needs, and I'm going to package it up this way, and I'm going to bring it to earth in this exact time in all of history. And you are a God dream. You are a God solution. You are God's plan A for the world in your sphere of influence. And as I came out of that season, it was like every part of my being, like every cell in my body began to know and believe that every single person on the planet is a walking miracle, and every single person has a divine purpose on this planet. And so it's like, when I actually talk about it, there's a special impartation that happens. It's not just head knowledge, it's heart knowledge. So coming out of that season, okay, I still have this desire to grow our family, and contending and believing, and it actually ended up taking 5 years for my little rainbow baby Eden to come into this world, to come earthside. And I just remember there were nights where I would lie awake crying, begging God for another child when nothing in my external circumstances looked like it was going to happen. And I just remember, like, God, you've given me this promise. I even had a vision. I even saw in a dream this little girl. She was maybe 4. She had ringlet curls. She came up to me and she said, "Hi, Mommy." And I just remember holding on to that little strand of hope when I felt so hopeless. It was just like that little strand of hope. And it was almost like in those 5 years, it was almost like as the moment that I would lose hope, the moment that I was like, couldn't hold on any longer, I would get a card or a call or a word where it was just like, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know, like, I actually just see, I see God opening up your womb, and I just see this little girl in your arms," or I just kept hearing the whispers of Eden is coming, Eden is coming, Eden is coming. And I would get a word of like, "Hey, I feel like God is going to bring you into a season of Eden." And so it was like all of these words along the way that would just continue to that I could barely hold on to hope and barely hold on to hope. And in that 5-year season, God was actually moving that head knowledge that he is the God of the promise into heart knowledge, so that every part of me knows that he is who he says he is beyond a shadow of a doubt. And so when he says that he's the provider, that even if my bank account, even if your bank account looks like it's going down the drain, he is the provider and he is faithful. That even if you have a dream that you've been contending for, that he is the God that gives dreams. The word dream, the word heart in the Hebrew, it actually is the word kardiva, and it actually means to be intertwined with your very being. And so there's all of this beautiful head knowledge to heart knowledge, this journey of sanctification, this understanding of, do I really believe God is who he says he is even in the midst of really, really hard circumstances. It's in the pressure, it's in those hard circumstances, it's in the hard times where that head knowledge gets seeped into our heart and into our identity, where we are able to then stand firm on the firm foundation of who we know God to be and who he says that he is. And that's that sanctification gap. And that's that growing in identity. And that's that standing firm in knowing God is who he says that he is. And so in this journey of head to heart, in this journey of closing these sanctification gaps, in the journey of God revealing himself in the different parts of his character to us at different parts of our lives, that's where, our identity gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And one of the greatest identities that we could ever know and have is, for me, is daughter. For you is son, is daughter. And I remember for me, part of this sanctification gap of actually being so rooted and grounded in my foundation and identity as daughter, that's actually is the pinnacle. Like, it's daughter is the pinnacle of identity. And I have planted my flag in that is actually like the greatest call, the greatest thing that I could ever be called, because we are adopted into the family of God. We're no longer slaves. We are no longer orphans. We are sons and daughters. And for me, I had an orphan spirit. I had, even growing up in a Christian home and even growing up in a missionary home, we were in YWAM, and I saw, signs and wonders and tent revivals and amazing things that God did, miracles. And there was still a part of me that had to actually journey through breaking off the orphan spirit and really dealing with rejection and where had I placed my identity. I dealt with a lot of performance. I felt like I had to earn love at different points in my life. I felt like I had to earn God's favor. I felt like I had to jump up and down to pick me, choose me. I looked for love in all the wrong places. My life was, I had planted these different identities when I was in volleyball. I played volleyball all growing up, in middle school, high school, college. It was I actually found so much identity in I'm on the volleyball team, and I would wear my sports team, because in a sea of 1,000 students in a college, in a college room, in a classroom, it's I didn't know who I was. Hey, I know this is a really, really quick interruption in between the show, but I had to make sure that you knew about my online prophetic planning workshop. Now, if you have ever planned your year or your future or your next season, and then you have just prayed for God to just bless whatever it was that you are doing it wrong. I love you, but you're doing it wrong. And when I realized this, right, it's that, okay, I believe that God's plans for me are good. They're better than what I could ever even hope, dream, or imagine, like it says in Ephesians 3:20. But I'm just gonna still take my own plans, and that worked last year, that was good, so I'm gonna keep doing that, and I didn't really like that, so I'm gonna keep doing that, and I'm just gonna do this thing moving forward, or this is what I think would be a good launch for that, or that is your plans, and praying that God will bless your plans. And this is the wrong way to do it. And once I realized this, I'll never go back to praying that God blesses my plans. Now, what I do is partner with God in his plans. And this is where it gets really, really fun. I go over all of this in my prophetic planning workshop. It's called God's Plan for Your Year. And whether it is the beginning of the year for you, or you're partway through, you're halfway through, it's almost the end of the year, whatever it looks like, it actually doesn't matter when you take it. But what we do is I first of all teach you how to hear and recognize the voice of God in all the different ways that he speaks, because his first language isn't English. Spoiler alert, he speaks in all different ways. We have all these incredible spiritual senses that he speaks to us with, that we can recognize and respond the way that God communicates. So I teach you how to do that, and then I walk you through my prophetic prompts. For every single month of the year, if you want to prophetically plan your year, I teach you how to get a sign 4 every year. I give you identity prompts. I give you financial prompts. If you have a business, there's different business prompts that you'll get a hold of so that you'll know when to launch or what programs to give your clients or how you can bless your community and your clients. So it really is incredible, but I want to give you an example. So there's a couple different ways that I have learned that over the last 6 years of me doing this and actually having 100+ people going through my God's Plan for Your Year online workshop is that God shows up in the most amazing ways. Sometimes we're called to partner with him. So for example, there have been times where I actually know when I'm launching my next book because God has given me the timeline. Right? I don't know about you, but I for sure have gotten like so frustrated, like, God, when is this gonna happen? Or what's your timing on this thing? So it actually helps me to know God's timeline because then I can settle in. I don't have to like try and strive and make something happen. I do this with my books. I do this with different videos and, or podcasts. I do this with different launches and different events and even planning out my year. We even did this with the sale of our house, okay? So we had our house for sale for a while and it wasn't selling. And all of a sudden it was towards the end of the year. I was actually pregnant. I was supposed to be having my baby soon. We didn't know if we should pull the house off the market or just like take a break. I was honestly so exhausted and just could use a break, and we were having a home birth. So I was planning out my year with the Lord. This was towards the end of the year. My baby was born in December. And so I was planning out my year ahead, and I remember I saw the sign that God had said there's going to be a large amount of money, and I saw the sign. I saw a sold sign in February, and I was like, oh, okay, I totally know when our house is going to sell. I don't have to worry. And so we ended up taking our house off the market. I was able to have an incredible home birth and just kind of not always have a show-ready house with a younger kid and a brand new baby. We put our house back on the market like a month later. We were able to be in our newborn bubble with such peace, and literally our house sold in February. Just like the prophetic prompt, just like God had revealed from my prompts, and just from the journaling that I do with God throughout these concepts that I teach you in the online workshop. Another one, I knew when we were actually going to find our house because it was like there was another sold sign, and I actually like saw even pieces and parts of our house, which was really amazing in a vision. I knew what month that was going to happen. Another one, I love this story. God actually, in the most beautiful way, sometimes we're called to partner with God, right, in our calendar and in our launches and in the things that we have going on, and other times he actually just wants to meet us. And I remember this was a couple years ago, a couple Christmases ago, but so this would have been in another December, but the year prior was when I had planned, and God gave me a picture, and I wrote some different things prophetically, but he gave me a picture, a sign of a woman holding a baby, and for the month of December, and he gave me this picture. And I just remember it was like one day I was home with my son and I was pretty exhausted. I was like, Mom, exhausted, honestly. Like, just if you're a mom, you know those days where it's like you're in your sweatpants, you haven't showered, you probably have like poop or puke all over you, you're tired, it's like you just like have nothing left to give. And I just remember sitting there on the floor, like kind of like exhaustedly like playing with toy Legos or cars with my son, who's probably 3 or 4 at the time. And I was like on the verge of tears, and my son picked up a book, and it was a cute little Christmas book about the story of baby Jesus and like the animals talk, and he said, Mommy, will you read this to me? So I was like, okay. So he like cuddled up on my lap, and I was reading it, and like the last page had a picture of Mary holding baby Jesus. And in that moment, like I just remember like the Holy Spirit, he was like, remember the prompt from December, remember the picture that I gave you from December, this is it. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh. And I just like felt his wrap around presence around me. And I just felt like the warmth and the comfort and the love and the refreshing and the refilling of the Holy Spirit in that moment of my exhaustion. And so God, and he had already told me that he was going to meet me in that moment a year before. And I just felt so seen and loved and known by God in that moment, that he actually knew that on that very day that I would so desperately need his presence in the midst of my exhaustion. He had already gone into my future And he had planned on meeting me there. And I could just like sense his delight of like, oh, Charity, I couldn't wait to meet you here today because I knew that the thing that you needed most today was me. And he had told me about it a year before. And so, like this is literally like one of my favorite things to do. So I want to invite you to to join me in my online prophetic planning workshop. It's called God's Plan for Your Year. I walk you through all of this stuff. You're gonna get all of the prophetic planning prompts. I did it live. This is the live replay that you'll get access to, but you can go to wearemeantformore.com/plan. It seriously is like, it's so reasonable, so affordable for you to grab because I want everyone to get a hold of this. Because imagine, what if so many more of us began to partner with God's plan instead of us praying and planning that he blesses our plan? Oh, no. Like, we are a part of his story. He is not, like, we are not the main character. He is the main character. We are called to bring heaven to earth in the way that he desires. And this will equip you and teach you how to be able to partner with God's plan and then to bring heaven to earth. I walk you through every single month, all the different prompts, teach you how to get a sign. And it is like one of the most fun ways to meet with God, to partner with God, to know his plans and his purposes and his heart for you and for the world around you. So go to wearemeantformore.com/plan and grab my prophetic planning workshop today. You're gonna love it, love it, love it. I can guarantee you that. Let's partner with God to bring heaven to earth. Okay, now back to the episode. And it was like, oh, I'm just gonna wear my team name because I'm significant, I'm special, like in that. And it was like all of a sudden I graduated college and I wasn't on a team anymore, and I had this like spiral of identity. And then, okay, I like planted my flag in the identity of a job and of a career, and all of a sudden, I did great, and I rose the ranks and got all the highest paychecks and was #1 sales and all the like things and all of that stuff and award winning. And then I went to entrepreneurship and really thrived in that. And yeah, here's my gym and here's my personal trainer and here's my XYZ and my awards, and I like planted identity in that. And then all of a sudden I become a mom and all of that like crumbles and falls away. And so I was like finding that I was planting my identity in all of these fickle things. And I planted then, okay, like plant my identity in motherhood. Okay, like what does it look like to do that? And then all of a sudden it's like that could be taken away when I went through loss. And okay, I could plant my identity as a wife. And Chris and I, my husband, we struggled for a couple of years, and thank God, like God came into that season. Maybe we'll be able to share our story one day, because that is a story of testimony and redemption that you will want to hear. But it's like, oh, like all of these what I now know and understand and realize are secondary identities, as God just began to, actually, that's not where I want you to plant your identity. Whew, like that's a shaky foundation. That's a shaky foundation too. And so for me, I had to go onto this journey of God, where do I plant my identity? Like what's the pinnacle of identity? Where is a firm foundation so that when everything else shakes, and where things of this earth, things of this world could be taken away. Like, who am I? Whose am I? What do you say about me, God? Who do you say I am? And the pinnacle of identity, that primary identity, is daughter. And it was like once I began to understand, oh, that's the firm foundation, I began to understand whose I am and who God is. And he just began to take me through this season of encounter. And he began to reveal who he was to me and who he called me. And actually a lot of that season turned into my devotional, Pathway to the Heart of the Father. So get that one if you are longing for identity. And he just began to pour into me just this love and this affirmation. And it became this season where, I just so firmly planted every part of my identity and of who I am and of whose I am and the voice that I listen to the most into daughter and into his voice and into the heart of a good father. And it's like no matter what happens around me, even in this, if you've been listening for a while, I've recently God invited me to surrender different things in a major business, in a country, in a nationwide business that I had, a nationwide company that I had built, I was the founder of, and actually it's invited me into more ministry and different leadership things within our church, and more of a ministry faith-based focus. And there was like some like rattling and shaking, but it wasn't like this major spiral of I don't know who I am and I don't know whose I am, and it like this, like it didn't get to the depths. So it was like, oh, actually, because I'm so loved by God. I'm a daughter. Like my flag was so firmly planted in daughter that even when things shifted and changed during seasons of transition, it didn't rattle me as much. Was I? Sure. Like transition always gets uncomfortable and there's pressure and it does bring up some stuff, and which it did. And it didn't like send me on this massive tailspin like it had before when I had my identity planted in other less firm foundations. And so at this retreat that I was just hosting, we talked about what it looks like to be able to do that. And so I guided them through just some different, where are these beliefs that I've planted myself in, in these secondary identities? And they're good, right? Wife, mom, minister, speaker, entrepreneur, whatever it might be, like all those things are good, but they're not meant to be primary identities. They're not meant to be where our flag is planted. And so, I began to walk the women through just kind of, surrendering and releasing those like taking up the flags and like replanting them back into daughter, and taking up the places where maybe we have misconstrued God's love and it has been defined by earthly love instead of actually by the love of the Father that comes from him and by his word. So it was this beautiful experience of bringing the women through how to confidently know and walk in their God-given identity and to close that sanctification gap so that when they walked out the doors, they were so grounded and rooted as daughters. Like no matter what else happened, and even the rest of the day, and we're going to get into this into part 2 of this episode, but even the rest of the day, we went over prophetic activations and callings and assignments, and okay, now I have these things, and where do I take them, and who am I called to, and what are my gifts, and how do I even like show this, where does this show up in my life, or what sphere of influence am I called to? And so we went over this stuff, and we'll talk a little bit about this in part 2 of this episode, so make sure that you stay tuned for that one. You're going to want to watch it. But this journey of identity was really, really important. And for me, God has given me this dream and this vision. I just remember it's even in the front of my devotional Pathway to the Heart of the Father, that it actually started with a vision. And I was in this beautiful, almost like an enchanted forest, or if you could imagine like a forest in heaven, this is like what it would have looked like, and golden beams shining through, and just like pops of color, and flowers in just like heavenly iridescent colors that you don't see on earth, and like the warmth of the sun. And I just remember seeing over to this side where there was like this well-worn pathway. And instantly, in my spirit, I knew it was the pathway that led to the heart of the Father. And I just knew that there was, like, I had made this path. It was so well worn because it was this journey that God had brought me on. I would go into his heart, and I would get in sync with his heartbeat, and I would see the things of his heart and the people of his heart. And I would come back out, and I would then bring them to the world, and I would go back into his heart, and I would receive, and I would be close to the Father, and I would come back out and bring it out to the world. And so it's this ebb and this flow that I would have, and it created this well-worn pathway. And I just remember the Lord telling me, I want you to show other women the pathway to my heart. I want you to start to equip and to call in an army of daughters who know the pathway to my heart, who know whose they are, who know who I say that they am, who know who I am. And so there's this army of daughters, what I even believe, and even in this upcoming year, and even in this season, there's an army of daughters that is assembling. And God has actually invited me into like assembling, into gathering these daughters who want to be equipped and solid in their God-given identity, and to know the pathway to the heart of the Father, and to go so into his heart and into his love, and to come back out because they have been imparted and equipped, and they have received something so sacred from the heart of the Father because they have been so close. They have seen his face. They have felt his heartbeat. They know his heart. And now they come back out and they bring that. to the world around them, whether it's their children, whether it's in their marriage, whether it's in your vocation, whether you are whatever mountain of influence you are called to, whatever sphere of influence you are called to. It could be just your children. It could be just just your job. It could be, I'm not saying like just in a bad way. I'm saying like it could be as small as your sacred little circle at home. It could be as big as stadiums or nations, or maybe you're called to be a voice to the nations, whatever your sphere of influence looks like. Part of what God is calling me to do is actually to gather daughters and to bring them on this well-worn path to his heart, to be so solid in identity, to know who they are, to know whose they are, and then to bring that out into their sphere of influence and to make heaven more like earth. So if that feels like you, if that is speaking to your spirit, if there's something in you that's coming alive, I actually want to invite you to join me in my Prophetic Collective. It has actually a section of it which is so fun. It is the School of the Prophetic, so you're going to be equipping. There's an equipping station. There's growing in your God-given identity. We have devotionals. We have encounters. It's an incredible online platform. We'll be able to get together in person as well, so don't worry about that, but I would love to invite you. So if you want to go to wearemeantformore.com/community and join me in this mandate, in this mission to gather the modern day Esthers, the modern day Deborahs, the modern day giant killers who believe God is who he says that he is. Sure, is there a sanctification gap? Sure, probably. Me too, right? We're all going to be in it together. But I feel like I am called in this season to gather women together, an army of daughters, because here's the thing, we aren't just like a group of women to gather. We aren't just a group of women who like, oh, let's make some cute flower bouquets and a potluck. We aren't just a group to gather. We are an army to equip. And your voice is powerful. What you carry is powerful, especially as a woman. And so I want to invite you to come and join me. You can go to wearemeantformore.com/community. It's donation-based, so it actually supports the ministry. You'll get a ton of access. We'll actually get to work closer together, which I would love, 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 online and in person. And so if you know that in this next season that God is calling you to rise up as a prophetic voice, that you have something on your life and people that you know that you're called to lead. Maybe you've been in a season of transition of letting some things go and you are wanting clarity and confidence in what God is calling you to do next, and you want to be surrounded by a community that can not just coddle you in the low seasons, but actually champion you and challenge you to rise into who God has called you to be. Then this is for you. So go to wearemeantformore.com/community and join me today. All right. In the next episode, we are going to be diving into some of what I was talking about at our retreat with deliverance. We're going to be diving into hearing God's voice and living a prophetic life. We are going to be diving into what I like to call the language of the Spirit, which is also the title of my next book, so stay tuned for that. And all sorts of fun things. So I'm going to give you kind of the high-level overview and some really incredible tips and lessons that the women at my retreat just learned. But again, I would love, love, love to start to be connected closer and more on like a real-life basis versus just a video or just an audio podcast. So go to wearemeantformore.com/community and join me today. There's an army of voices. There is an army of prophetic voices and prophetic women who are called for just a time as this. And if that's you, go to wearemeantformore.com/community and then join me in part 2 of this series.